Again, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Take a picture of that shoe star. I'm going to call Michael myself. I'm going to call Jordan
You won't
and
get
Reggie.
them. Trust me.
All right, sorry about that. I got to do an interview.
No, you won't get them. These are old. It's like vintage.
Okay.
Coming straight.
Go right to Tinker. You know Tinker?
No.
Tinker is the guy who creates all the sneakers.
Oh, right.
Tinker's the designer. Yeah. I told him I wanted organs just like that, the Oregon Ducks. Boom. Next day at my house. Okay,
maybe I should give you a call then afterwards because you still have these black patterns. Have you? No. Anyway, it's about your movie.
Yeah.
Which I must say, I wanted that movie to be so good, so bad, that I'm very pleased to say it worked. It is by far better than the first one. Not by far. But I'm trying to really figure out what it is that really pleased to me like the most, because I felt that it's not a typical modern movie. It's a classic one. It has depth. Some of them are hidden. Some are quite obvious. But I felt altogether, this is a brilliant movie. Would you disagree or agree?
Oh, I would agree completely, and I thank you very much for those kind words. That was the goal. I've never been in a sequel. For me, it had to be better than the first. And still be different, kind of stand on its own, have all the things that you liked about the first one, but, go on a whole new journey with these guys. And when Seth pitched me the idea, because I was not contractually obligated to be in another one.
Which is rare these days.
Yeah, and I prided myself on, well, they didn't know how well the movie was going to do. They certainly didn't know to the extent that it performed. But people loved it. People buy it right away that John and Ted are best friends and that Ted is real. And this stuff was happening. And it was the one thing we always had to play it very real. We didn't want to ever wink at the audience or the camera. And felt like that was the only way that you could get people to go on the ride.
But what do you think is it that I felt like? I felt like thrown back without being too nostalgic, but it had kind of that 80s appeal for some reason without looking 80s.
Seth's an old school guy anyway, he's into, big band and all that stuff. We talk about all the 80s references. These are all the stuff these guys grew up with. And people can relate to it, but also young people still, they get right into it, I don't know if it's because of all the weed they're smoking, but, it's one of those things where it just worked with their audiences across the board.
But you see, that's also like one of the things. What I found very interesting is like the character played by Amanda Seyfried, which seemed to be a total idiot when it comes to pop culture. She has no clue about anything that's out there, which is unusual because these days, especially like in America, pop culture is very important. I also think, don't you think that also like to a certain degree it's going to be complicated in different countries because Tyler Perry, I know Tyler Perry, but I think most people wouldn't get like the reference, like mentioning someone like Tyler Perry who's like very big in the American culture. Do you fear that sometimes this might be tricky?
No, because we had those same issues with the first one. When you were talking about the guy Brandon Ruth who played Superman and all these things, and all of them just kind of worked. But I just realized, oh my gosh, Tyler Perry is a friend of mine. He's gonna go crazy when he sees that, and it was completely Seth. You know what I mean? So I got some explaining to do. I'm gonna get a lot of phone calls.
I bet, and I must say, I also had a guilty pleasure when you guys were running into that improv theater. There were really some stuff, and I had a guilty pleasure, and I was lucky that this is like a dark theater, and I felt guilty about laughing about that. But props to that. I don't want to spoil anything of it. But like, there's this one scene that
they had to make some changes too because he went way further, and because of all the things that are going on in the world, there were a number of things that we had to go back and change. It. They said, "Oh, this is too harsh." Or this is not harsh enough, depending on who it was and who was going to get the brunt of it, Whether
I bet it is
Cosby or who. This one, I was like, just make sure it's Ted saying it, not me,
Oh, that's why you just hear the voices. But it's a brilliant scene. But what I can spoil is like there's a particular part that is also playing on Comic-Con, and then I was like, okay, as a viewer, I'm like, yeah, I remember this, I know this. But for someone who's into like the movie business for some reason, I understand this must have been like a nightmare licensing all of that, making sure that everything that is shown there, which is a franchise of another company, needs to be clarified. I mean, that process must have taken already like a month or at least.
It took a long time, and there were definitely things changing because we thought we had a relationship with this one, and we thought we were going to get cleared by that one and get the rights to this and that, and it was always constantly changing. So they were redesigning things, building new sets. But, the big thing was Hasbro,
That's just going to be my next question, because is it a coincidence that Hasbro is part of that
Transformers
movie?
And all that? Yes, it is. And you know what? They got a sense of humor. You know, let's just say that. They got a sense of humor, so that was cool.
But was it right away that Seth said, like, I just want to do this part with Hasbro? Or is it just like, oh yeah, hey, Mark, we from Hasbro, we loved you in Transformers, whenever you need anything, call
No,
us.
Seth had come up with the idea, and then, you know, they were just like, fine. And there was a different direction that it took with the whole My Little Pony thing and all that stuff, but that was too much too.
Any chance of this material actually to be released on the DVD? Because
Absolutely, yeah.
Because what I heard, this movie, which I saw today, is not finished to 100%.
No.
So I understand. So what is missing?
Just little tweaks and stuff, and if something happens tomorrow, Seth is going to be in that booth, you know, putting that in Ted's mouth, and, you know, so you figure, you know, that's the great thing about making movies now. You don't have to lock the picture as early as you used to, and you sending out screenings and use different versions of the movie. Then when you finally lock it, you can, boom, go right, especially with the digital feeds, you can go right to the cinemas. So if something happens next week, that's a big deal. It's probably going to be in the movie.
Production-wise, I see this is a huge advantage, but I see, like, creative-wise, it must be also like a nightmare, because you will never know when to stop. And also, just see the discussion that we had about, like, Star Wars when the special edition came out. Like, hardcore fans were like, "Why did you modify my children memory?" So I don't think that this is, like, from the moral side, this could be kind of an issue. Like, when you feel like the director's like, while you in the movie and he's switching something via his cell phone or Apple Watch, something like that. I mean, if this is the future,
I don't know about that. No, once it's done, it's done. You know, once you lock the picture. But the great thing about, like, in the first one too, we had so many bonus things on the DVD, so you definitely see all of those scenes. But, you know, you get head of studio calling saying, "You can't say that about so and so. Do you realize what's going on?" I'll tell you some of them off camera, but.
Okay, so I'm waiting for that afterwards. But in general, the things like originally Ted was also considered, or actually made as a TV show. Then came out with a movie theater, like the first one. But now that the second one is gonna come out, and I feel that this one is gonna be successful. So the question will be either a third one, or why not a TV show? Would that be interesting for you? Because, like, coming from the big screen to the flat screen, it's not such a big thing these days.
No. A lot of people, you know, in the movie business before, it was taboo to go from making movies to doing television. But you know, it really would depend on Seth and what he wants to do with all the other stuff that I've got going on. You know, that's a huge commitment, making a TV series. I've produced a couple of them, and it takes quite a commitment. I've got a lot of other stuff going on, so.
Well, that I'm sure of. And as I said, I'm really lucky that you are here and that you found some time. We don't have the director here, so but that's why I should ask, how far have you been involved in that movie? Was it just like, here's a script, Mark, read, go through it?
He told me about it, and then I'd sit down, he'd send me the script, and, you know, we'd have obviously an opinion on a lot of things, and, you know, we talk about my notes and ideas, but, you know, the great thing about Seth and his group of guys, they're so talented, and they deliver, you know? It's not like you got to say, "Oh my God, guys, we got to go back to the drawing board." You know, what is this? There's holes in this storyline and this, and they deliver. And then we go out there and we improvise and we play, and you know, Seth and I could go on for hours when we're going and rolling. It's just nonstop.
And how close do you feel to this one? Because I know actors most of the time, like, once they're moving out of the trailer in front of the camera, doing their bit, going back, once everything is wrapped, they're done with it. Is it easy for you to say, like, after this thing here, this is over, Ted is like, it's going to be past, or will it follow you?
Well, it's hard because I'm in the middle of making a movie right now, which is a very serious drama. It's a true story of a horrible tragedy that took place in 2010. So making that, I mean, my mind is completely on that, but, you know, as soon as I'm back and talking about this, I remember it like it was yesterday, and, you know, these are very fond memories. I mean, we've had nothing but great times making these two movies, shooting them in my own backyard about guys that we kind of relate to and identify with on many levels, so yeah, it's not something that you just kind of forget about and move on. Although I try, especially when I'm playing these kind of darker, more evil characters, but John's such a likable guy.
But exactly, I just felt, before I went into this movie, I felt like, in general, it's kind of interesting that this movie becomes like successful, because I always consider you more of a, if you have any kind of humor on the screen, it's more like a dry one. So it was very, very, I was laughing my ass off when I saw you, like, crawling up the wall, trying to get home. Yeah. So I would say that suits you. I mean, you did that also, like, in Pain and Gain, you had some goofy moments, but could you imagine just doing, like, an entire movie just being, like, into that goof mode?
Yeah, why not? Why not? It's a lot of fun, you know? If people enjoy watching it, yeah, sure.
Okay, so I'm looking forward to that. And finally, as of last time you've been here talking about Transformers, I had to talk about Entourage. But this is not my question about Entourage itself. Because you also said, like, somewhere in another interview, everybody's asking you about that. How about, like, when you were talking about Entourage, how many people have been asking you about Ted 2?
A lot. It's one of those things where people... I mean, my mother has seen the first one 50 times. She keeps calling me because she wants to see it before everybody sees it, you know. She wants to see it before all of her friends see it. I'm like, my mother's 70-something years old. She's freaking out about Ted, you know. It's like, it's crazy. It's just become a phenomenon.
But any chance that your kids will also see it? Because it's not
No, they're too young. My wife would kill me. You know, I let my son see the fight in the first one between me and Ted without the sound because there's way too many F-bombs and they'll be repeating everything that they hear. And they think they can see it because they just see me on the poster with the cuddly teddy bear and they're like, oh, Dad, come on, we got to be able to see this one. They haven't really seen anything that I've done other than Transformers.
No, but I can tell your grandma has a good choice. Also, a great family. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Barry.
Yeah, great movies.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hey, die Sorte ist ganz neu, die heißt, helft mir nach Hause zu kommen.
Hey Leute, ich habe ein kleines Problem.
Was ist denn los?
Könnt ihr mir helfen, nach Hause zu kommen?
Ted, Sie sind was Besonderes. Aber Sie haben nichts Positives geleistet.
Ich sag's ja, Sport ist für den Arsch. Was hast du jetzt davon?
Der hatte einen positiven Effekt auf mich.
Nein, ich hab echt Angst, okay? Du machst das toll.
Die Scheiß kannst du nicht beißen.
Wirklich?
Oh, ach du Scheiße.
Oh mein Gott.
Wer war das? Oh, leck mich am Arsch. Sir, ich entschuldige mich für mein 5-jähriges Kind. Böser Butch, bleib da sitzen und isst deine Fischnuggets.
Fischnuggets.
Es geht los.
Donnerpartys fürs Leben. Oh, perfekter Spiralwurf.
Scheiße, was ist los? Sei vorsichtig damit, ja?
Schon gut, ist nicht geladen. Toll, jetzt ist meine scheiß Nase abgegangen.